Welcome everyone to the first ever episode of CNC on CFB. We decided to start this week 6 because, as the old saying goes, don't start at the beginning. That's for nerds. Start about halfway through.
Oh yeah, and it's better late than never. So we're just gonna share some thoughts on the season, what we've seen so far, who we, you know, think has a chance to maybe make some noise this season come CFP time, and just predicting, week 6, the best week to ever
Yep, we'll
start.
hop into the slate of the most important week of the season. Everyone knows week
Oh
6.
yeah, oh yeah,
And then I think a little bit of gambling talk and we'll get out of here.
yep,
All right. You want to open things up with our first ever segment?
sure, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this.
All right. So we call this one Connor's Questions. I'm Connor, and I have a lot of questions rattling around in this old brain. So I figured
Don't we all?
I'd toss some over to my co-host Colin here. And I want to start with one that I think is more intriguing right now than at any other point 5 weeks into the season I can remember, which is that who do you think has a shot to win it all? Because it feels wide open this year. It doesn't feel like
Oh
there's
yeah.
4 or 5 teams hanging around the top and it's going to be one of them.
Nope.
It feels like we could have a pretty long list. So I want to hear. I gave you the assignment last night.
Yeah.
You haven't told me yet. Who do you think has a shot to win it all this year?
Yep. So, obviously, really good question. I like to think maybe I understood the assignment. We'll see based on your reaction to this. But I figure why not go conference by conference, and then
Okay.
just kind of break things up in that sense. And then in the end, it might look like an abhorrently large amount of teams, but it's just look week 6. I think a lot can happen, and that's the beauty of this game with
Yep.
so many matchups, so much volatility in the rankings potentially. For we have anything can happen any given Saturday, I guess, any given Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday with how
Hey, Tuesdays now.
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. So, all right, and I guess to kind of lay the scene here, I'm a little bit of a SEC bias here, but I think starting in that conference where we have been used to seeing such dominance historically, especially obviously the past couple of years with Georgia
Hmm.
going on their run now, with
And
the
Alabama for a decade
yeah,
before that.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and then I guess LSU pretty
Hmm.
much around the same time or before that, and
Yep.
then yeah, so we've been what's been used to routinely been hailed as the best conference in college football.
Yep.
It's definitely not this year. It's
It's not.
definitely not. And when I think about, because I feel like in the past it might have been, oh, does Georgia and Alabama maybe have a chance to get in? Like it's if both teams play really well and they get to the East West winners, division winners, and then if it's a close championship game, that'll be half the playoff. Well, I think they're gonna be lucky, the SEC is to just get one team in this year. And in terms of who I think, though, still has maybe that chance.
Yep.
I think obviously Georgia
Number
for
one team in the
sure,
country
number one
right
team
now.
in the country, but
Yep.
I don't think it's.
Not
Not
number
my
one in
number
my
one.
power rankings,
Yeah,
but
no,
they're
not.
number one in the AP polls. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta
No,
have
that's
them in
that's
there.
the same. Yeah, so that's the same. I mean, I feel the same way. I've seen my Gamecocks, and even just last week the Auburn Tigers. Like Georgia's just not dominating as maybe you'd expect. And look, we're holding them to a high standard. I feel like to some degree, you've won the last two,
Yep.
but they just objectively, I think it's funny we talk about objective versus subjective, what we think versus what we feel maybe or whatever it might be. The reality is Georgia just hasn't looked nearly as good as they
Nope.
have, and the defense. I mean, I think the calling card, Kirby Smart. Defensively, they can compete with anybody. Obviously, they can hang
Mhm.
around there. It's just for me, it's the offense and the consistency there. And Carson Beck, I think he's a solid FBS quarterback, but I don't think necessarily you know associate him with a potential national championship winning quarterback. But then again, he doesn't have to be because of how good maybe the
Yeah, I mean,
team's
you look
pieces
at
are
these
around
last two
them.
Georgia teams. It's been the defense has been their calling card, and
Yeah,
they've had Stetson Bennett, a guy who, was not highly recruited, was a 3-star walk-on at Georgia, who no one thought would ever even win the job, let
no.
alone win any games once he got it. So
Hmm.
he doesn't have Carson Beck does not have to be the man, but the team around him has to, and so far they haven't been.
No, no, and it's like what's the saying goes. The a rising or a tide lifts all boats, something along those lines. I
Yep.
think for Georgia, it's pretty much Brock Bowers, and as good as he is, we'll see. We'll see down the line. I mean, I just spend a lot of time on Georgia here, but I just wanted to serve as a precursor because I think they're vulnerable,
Yep.
so to speak. So George from the SEC, I got Georgia, and then for the state of this exercise, look, Georgia, the SEC, there's two divisions. Georgia's from the East, and I think Georgia's clearly head and shoulders. They're the only team from the East that has a chance. But I think out West, between two teams in Bama and LSU, I think there's a potential route. There's a potential route to get into the playoffs still, I think. I think, call me crazy, but I think
I will call you crazy.
there might be just, even if it's just the 0.0439% chance. I think, look, and obviously it's either Bama or LSU. I mean, LSU, we'll get into them later in another segment, but I mean, look, I guess maybe I lean toward Bama more likely because if they, get a big win this weekend, if they get, by the time the SEC, by the time Conference Championship Week rolls around and they're in, that 6, 7, 8, 9 range, which they're already, we're talking 11th at this point in the year. They could be, and if they go and they beat Georgia, it's a big if, really big if, but if they beat Georgia in the title game, I could see them sneaking into that 4th spot, to be honest. So,
and I just want to reiterate that the point of the exercise was not who could potentially win the SEC West. It was who could potentially win the national championship.
Fair enough.
And you have LSU in that group of teams that could still be hoisting the trophy at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a long shot. It's probably the biggest long shot of the teams I have here. Yes. So look, it's not like their defense can really be any worse than what we've seen. So it's just the offense with Jaden Daniels, with the weapons around there. Brian Thomas has really stepped up, but Malik Neighbors has been very good this season, building off, what we, his really strong campaign last season. But, yeah, I don't know. Call me, maybe I have a little bit of LSU bias here, visited their campus, a long time ago, but I just think there's a chance, we'll see who the SEC conference champion is. And those are the 3 teams that I feel like are relatively within shouting distance or within contention, and come playoff time. And look, like we've talked about, the theme here is there's not, if there's a chance that somebody can get in, it's not like you're going to be playing the best team ever, regardless of if you're playing the 1, 2, or 3 team, in the whatever matchup within the top 4 you're in. So that's my long-winded answer of maybe saying as much as 3 teams from the SEC have a chance. Moving on now, we'll just get really quick and brush through the independents of the world, which I'm really a big believer in Navy this year. No, I don't think they're in the AAC now, I think, but
regardless, you're not a believer in Navy.
No, just to clarify that, which it does pain to say as, a 12th generation removed from the Navy. It's tough. It's really tough here. It hurts to say, but jokes aside, I think Notre Dame, maybe. I just can't. I mean, look, they have what? They have USC still.
They've got a lot.
They
left
have
on
enough
the schedule, which
meat
you can
on the
look at
bone.
2 ways.
Yeah,
they got time to make hay if
Yep.
they win these big games. It also is going to be tough for them to do. But
but it's
not a
just
concern for you with LSU. So why would it be a concern?
exactly. So it's just, look, I'm just throwing up prayers here. I'm casting a very wide net, so to speak.
Clear.
I'm casting a very wide net here. So all right, that's 4 teams. Now getting into the ACC, I think what I see is not 1, but I think 2 teams from the ACC have a chance.
Okay.
And the second of which I think, you guys might be able to see where this is going, but the second team now, I think, Well, the theme here with the ACC. Let's just
Well,
establish this.
why don't you hit us with the first team? I don't
First
think we
team.
have to talk much about it. Florida State has maybe the best resume in the
Oh,
country.
they do. Oh,
Anyone
okay.
anyone making this list has Florida State on the list.
Yeah, that safe
Yeah.
to say. Safe to say. Which, yeah, I mean, speaking of going back to LSU, I mean that first weekend
Yep.
way to make. I mean, talk about statement wins. I mean, I think what you got to put pretty much. I mean, maybe you can rank it how you see it, but that week one FSU over LSU and then the Texas over Bama, like we've kind of already alluded to, I think those are the top two wins,
Yep.
easily this season. And you have to recognize the victors, accordingly from those two respective results. And as such, with Florida State, I think they have, in terms of, it's an interesting, topic where and at this point, week 6 in the season, in terms of who do we see maybe has a chance, who do we potentially see winning, which obviously the theme is it's wide open as it's ever been.
Yep.
But if we maybe just think of, in the future episodes and future topics on the line, but just who are we confident relatively, at least gets into the top 4? I think Florida State, it kind of begins, and I mean, it really begins with Florida State, in my view, as far as a clear path, and just
The path's not super clear. I think you may be about to mention the biggest stumbling block on there, but yeah, let's get into. We don't have to go so in depth about these top teams because I think we will be talking about them in a minute.
yep,
But
yep.
I want to hear about this second ACC team you have.
Sure. So my second ACC team is actually the number 14th ranked team in the country. I'm going with the UNC Tar Heels. I think, look, undefeated. Look, it's going to be, obviously, at the end of the day, it's going to be one ACC team, the conference winner that gets in there. And I look at UNC, and I think, look, the theme of, regardless of whatever year we're talking about, for college football playoff national championship winning teams, I feel like a common theme is you have to have a really good quarterback or phenomenal defense, right? And with UNC, with Drake May, I mean, he's a phenomenal player. And he's just now, after the NCAA has seemingly finally come to their senses, getting his, supposed to be his number one
Yep.
receiver and Tez Walker back. I think that's huge.
I don't know if you saw the video when he found out. It was beautiful.
Okay, I got to check that out. I
Yep.
could only
Check that
imagine.
one out.
Could
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah, I mean the anguish that we saw him under on the sidelines in those first weeks, not knowing if he was going to be able to play, then finding out he wasn't going to be able to play, and everything that came out from that. It was nice to see the reaction when he found out that it's been lifted and he can play.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just one of those feel good stories. And hey, maybe it is that kind of Cinderella, not feel good, the momentum that happening right now in this week 6. Maybe it just takes off from here. We'll see. Maybe they just have that luck right now going, or not luck, but just those kind of vibes or that trajectory. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of comprises the ACC. So we're up to now 3 from, in my view, 3 SEC.
Okay, I'm going to start doing some math.
Yeah, a lot. It's good that the playoffs expanding, in my opinion. So we're up to 3 SEC, an independent, 2 from the ACC. So that puts me already at 6. And now we're getting into the actual meat and bones of, the real conferences this year, I think. And so now let's go into the Pac-12, where, look.
Best conference in the country.
Oh, yeah, easily. And I think, not a lot needs to be said because we've seen how good, these teams are. And I'll just kind of rattle through here. We have USC, Washington, Oregon, which I think are, again, the Pac-12 championship winner, I think is, locked in to a top 4.
And I think those 3 you just mentioned, like I said about Florida State, are 3 that you ask this question to anyone, those names have to be included in the list of teams that could win it all. Because all 3 of them have looked excellent. They've looked the part. They have the guys. They're playing in the toughest conference, which means whoever comes out of it will be battle tested. So I think all 3 are dead locks.
Oh, yeah.
To be in this conversation. Not all 3 are deadlocks to be in the college football playoff. That would be shocking.
Yeah. 3 out of 4 Pac-12, that would be something, breaking history. But I feel like ultimately it's just so ironic or, a shame, however you want to look at it, that in this level, what is tracking to be this last year of this Pac-12 conference, it's by far in a way its strongest and best year it's looked like
Yeah.
football wise. But as I'm saying that, I believe it or not, I do have a fourth team from the Pac-12, which I think has a chance. They have a fighter's chance. They've really exceeded expectations, I think, and really dating back to last season, they've really been on an upward trajectory. And with, again, this theme of quarterbacks and good
know where you're
defenses,
going.
I got to go with Cam Ward and the Washington State Cougars. I just think, Wazoo, they have something going for them. They just had, big wins against Wisconsin, against Oregon State and the Beavers. And DJU, they haven't been a slouch. DJU's been playing all right this year. The whole Pac-12, it's by far, it's just it's a conference of death. And
It is.
I think Washington State, I guess, yeah, they're safely ahead of LSU for my, wildest shout for who has a chance, I think.
Yes.
Still to maybe win a national championship.
You know
but-
that teams with 2 losses don't get into the college football playoff, right? You know
Yeah.
that's never happened?
Yeah, okay. So I guess now it's becoming apparent that it's kind of impossible for LSU. I'm really cooking up like the most conspiracy, just crazy. Okay, we'll remove LSU.
No, I like it though. You put it on paper. You put it out there.
I put it
You
on
don't-
paper. It's
You
just
don't get the weasel out of this
it's
thing.
not no, but I'm saying it's acknowledging that it's kind of the wildest pick I have, and it's contingent again on I think when we go ultimately and we thinking who has a chance, and we think of maybe just like I said, how the playoff sets itself up, just how it's the 4 teams that are composed of it. Going to have the Pac-12 winner, going to have the Big Ten winner, going to have, I guess, the ACC winner. I would venture out to say, but then there's the Big
It all
12
depends on how the
SEC.
season breaks down.
Yeah, so it's just a lot can happen. A lot can happen. So,
which is why these lists are so long right now.
Yep.
Maybe not all as long as yours.
no, but that's just I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I mean, if there's just if you're saying there's a chance. If there's a chance, I'll buy in there. But all right, rattling off
Yep, so
Pac-12.
we're at 10 through the Pac-12. We still got the Big 12 to
Big
go.
12 to go, yep. And with the Big 12, I really see, playing devil's advocate, I think this is a statement game opportunity for both Texas and Oklahoma. Of
course
so
it
that's those are the only 2 I see though realistically. I think it's, the Big 12, it just runs through those 2. And I can't see. I'm just looking and even, in the rankings here, just thinking of possibilities. I just don't think it's one of those 2 has a chance.
It has to be.
So
And just as much as everyone's talking about the Pac-12 as a victim of timing, if they had this great season like this just a couple years ago, they would have gotten a media deal done. Everyone would have stayed. The Big 12, on the other hand, no one's talking about it, but they're a beneficiary of timing.
Yeah.
If they were this bad top to bottom, with the top 2 teams leaving for the SEC, which is the current state of, they would be, they'd be gone. They'd be obliterated.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how conference realignment works like that. But as I said, this is a week 6 podcast, so we don't have to talk conference realignment. That's more of an off-season.
Well, yeah, exactly. That'll be a fireside chat in the off-season here. But
so, funnily enough, your list had 12 teams on it.
well, we're not
Oh, you're not done.
even done. I don't think we got into, to my knowledge, recollection here. We've gone through 3, 1, 2 has been the 3 has been the
SEC.
SEC.
1 independent.
1 independent. The 2 have come from the
ACC. 4 in the Pac-12.
4 in the Pac-12, which gets it up to 10, and then
another
2
in
from the Big 12. We haven't even touched on the Big 10.
Oh my goodness.
Haven't even touched on the Big 10, which I think is right up there for the 1B maybe in terms of
course,
best conferences. So I basically
a big whiff on my part.
it's just building suspense here. A little bit of the shock factor. But yeah, so my list is going to be ultimately 15 teams.
Wow, we got 5 more coming through. All right.
3.
Or 3 more. We're already at 12.
3 more.
Yes.
Yeah. 5 from the Big 10 would
That's
be
why
kind of
I've been
crazy.
writing down the math.
Yeah,
It doesn't
there
go
you
so
go.
well when I
Yeah,
try it up here.
Yeah, I try to store it in here, but it always goes in one way out the other. But I think, look, the Big 10, it's pretty clear cut. Your Ohio State, your Penn State, and and or Michigan are the big 3 there. And look, I'm big Kyle McCord guy, I think, but even then, I think Ohio State. Look, talk about big wins going into Notre Dame, Big Ben. That was a pretty big, maybe top five. I would say top five for sure in terms of best wins of the year so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the beauty is, look, you don't have C.J. Stroud level play necessarily, Heisman level, so to
Yep.
speak, in December, but you do have a very, I think, improved defense,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to be necessarily a world beater in Ryan Day's offense to just. I mean, Kyle McCord
Yeah.
can. I think he can. Ultimately, he's good enough. And with look, J.J. McCarthy and Drew Aller, I think those are two very good quarterbacks. And yeah, Big Ten, we're talking complete, stout defensively teams, just versatile offensively. I think if I look, I we'll check back on this a couple, months from now, but I'm pretty confident if I had to say, look, the national championship winner, I think, is from either the Big Ten or the Pac-12. I'm going to go on a limb there in that sense. So I'm covering some bases there. I'm basically leaving it up to some very, very good teams. Five,
Mm-hmm.
six, seven really good teams, of course. But I just think, they are the two best conferences, and basically the winner, whoever does make it into that top four, right? They're going to be battle tested, and they're just going to be, I think, the most complete team.
Yep.
Where you think, oh, they're going maybe against a Georgia or an FSU. I mean, I don't know. That's just where I see it. Those are my 15 teams who I think have a chance. Now, I'd love to hear, how much smaller maybe your list is than mine, Connor. So let's get into yours.
Well, it is not all that much smaller,
Okay.
actually. It is fairly different, though. I think
Okay.
the top is going to look the same as they will. We talked about a lot of these teams everyone would have on their list. But I had 12 teams on my list.
Okay.
Georgia, easy. Don't need to talk about it. Michigan, Texas, Ohio State, Florida State, Penn State. Again, all of those, don't need to talk about them. They're the top 6 in the country right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And yeah. Now, I also have the big 3 out of, I should say the big 4. Why not? I
Yep.
have the big 4 out of the Pac-12. I know Wazoo came into this season not super high expectations. I think they were an 8.5 point dog to a Wisconsin team that's essentially in a rebuild, the first year of a rebuild,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
new coach, new quarterback, all that. But they went out there and they pretty much stomped them. It was, and then they came back, as you said, they played a really good Oregon State team and they
Mm-hmm.
controlled the game. This team looks a lot better than we thought they were going to going into the season. We know Cam Ward's a great quarterback. Look, it's going to be tough getting through that Pac-12 schedule, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then whoever you end up seeing in the playoffs, should they make it, also going to be incredibly tough. But hey, TCU made it to the doorstep last year.
Fair point.
Why can't Wazoo do it? So
Why?
I got
Yeah.
4
Why
out of the
not?
Pac-12. Yeah.
Why not? Big Cam Ward guy. I think he's so improved, and even from a NFL evaluation. I know Dane Brugler. He's a big NFL draft guy. The Athletic, heading up their NFL draft coverage. He's saying even the NFL guys are really starting to notice from what apparently was almost like a day 3 potentially undrafted free agent type of stock for Cam Ward. We're talking now, I think, firmly into that day 2 of the NFL draft conversation. He's got arm talent. He can make the throws. He looks like a Houdini in that pocket sometimes.
Yeah.
And a Jeff Dickert team, the defense, they're not anything to play with. They're not a complete joke. They've got playmakers in the back end. And yeah, I guess I have a bit of a love affair for Washington State because I placed my biggest bet ever last season on their over under. So I still have some bias toward Wazoo here, but let's get into your list
right.
further.
My last 2 are, I have UNC, who I really kind of don't think can do it, but I have them here out of respect for. I mean,
Yeah.
Mac Brown's a great coach. Drake May's a good quarterback. They got into a war against Appalachian State, which I think a lot of people have as a big negative on their resume.
Yeah.
I kind of take it as that's a tough game. First of all, App State's not a bad team, and they see that as a huge in-state rivalry. UNC doesn't see it as that at all. So it's very easy to come out sleepwalking in that game with App State coming out. That's their Super Bowl. And they took a lot of punches in the mouth. They withstood it. They went to 2 overtimes, I believe, and ended up pulling out a tough game. I've got some respect for a team that can do that. Obviously, you have to play better. You have to play tighter going forward. But I've got them in there. Again, I don't really believe they could win the national championship, but it's a respect spot on my list,
For
I would
sure.
say.
For sure.
And then my last team, a team that you did not have. Maybe I'm
Okay.
drinking the Kool-Aid, but the U is back, baby. Miami
Okay.
undefeated, massive win over Texas A&M, who's a good team, who we'll talk about in
Yeah.
this week's slate. I think
Yeah.
could go beat Alabama this week,
Yeah.
and Miami dog walked them. It wasn't that close of a game. Miami
No,
was
that's
better on offense, better on defense.
fair enough.
Miami's blown out everyone they've played. Now that's been the only Power Five opponent they've played,
Mm-hmm.
but Miami's making it look easy on the field right now. It's not the easiest path to get there, but who's to say they can't do it? I had to put them on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just run through a couple notable exceptions. I didn't have Notre Dame on the list.
Yeah, sure. I was going to ask that. Yep.
They, in my opinion, the offense should be electric. Audric Estime is a great running back. Sam Hartman's a great quarterback. We've seen what he did at Wake the last 3 years, and it just hasn't looked electric. They've been in these dog fights that
Fair enough.
when you have that much firepower and you can't unleash it and you can't use it when the game matters the most. And really, let's also talk about they should probably have 2 losses right now.
Yeah.
They pulled that Duke game out of like
Yeah.
a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I don't have Notre Dame in there. I just don't know that they can win the big game when they need to, and they're gonna need to. It's gonna have to be USC. It's gonna have to be all the way down the line, and then if should they make it into the college football playoff, that's 2 more big games you have to win. I just don't know if they can do it.
I got you. Very fair. Very fair. And so then I guess just going through again too. So I guess you don't have Oklahoma.
I don't have
Don't have
Oklahoma. That is
Oklahoma.
my biggest notable exception. Undefeated. They have some really good on paper numbers that I think are just that. They're on paper numbers because they
Yeah.
hung it on.
Sure.
I can't even remember who. A very low level team. They think they won 72-0, which is really propping up their season averages on offense and defense.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, I don't believe now they're 5-0. They're in essentially a 2-team conference. If they win this week, it looks like a cakewalk to the to the playoffs. So Oklahoma fans are not going to like to hear this. I know I'm way out on a limb here. I don't think that they come close this week. I think they show up as not being frauds, but they were a 6-6 team last year. If they go 10-2, that's a great improvement, but that's not close to winning it all. And I think that's what's gonna show up this weekend when they play their toughest test of the season in Texas. And so I just don't have them. I just don't see it. I could come here and eat a lot of crow on Monday's episode if they go out there and they blow out Texas, or even just beat them, even just keep it close. I will probably have to amend this list a little bit. But
Okay.
the other 3 that I have on there that I just thought were worth mentioning, I don't have Bama.
That was good. That was my next question. Yep.
It's Nick Saban has won with all different types of teams. He adapts, so he could adapt to this team. The problem is they already have 1 loss. They've got a tough schedule going forward. They've got to get through, a full SEC gauntlet. Even when you play the not great teams in the SEC, every week's a possible trip-up week.
Oh yeah.
And he's done it with not the best defenses in the world, but with Heisman winning quarterbacks, which they do not have. And then he's done it with not awesome quarterbacks and elite defenses. The defense doesn't look elite, and Jalen Milroe doesn't even really look like a quarterback out there. So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't see how I could see them making the playoff. It'd be tough. I could see them doing it. I could certainly see them playing Georgia in the SEC championship game. I just don't see how they could get past these teams at the top of the list: the Georgias, the Michigans, the Texases, the Florida States. I just don't have them in that category. And then I have 2 more I just wanted to mention. Basically, shout them out for 2 SEC undefeated teams, at least worth mentioning: Kentucky and Mizzou. I don't think either of you have it. I think Kentucky's kind of a fake 5-0. I think that
Okay.
they are ranked and stuff because they got the ranked win last week and they made Florida look really bad.
Yeah.
I think Florida is really bad.
I
think
agree.
Florida
I
always
agree.
was really bad. So.
Yeah. A little bit overhyped, I feel like, routinely each
Yeah.
season now for Florida. But
And Mizzou, I actually think is a really solid football team. I just don't think they have the dogs to get it done. It's when people say it's about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. Mizzou doesn't have the Jimmys and Joes.
yeah, I guess the one guy, to play devil's advocate here, the one guy really is Luther Burden, who,
Oh, great
the
call.
number one,
Yeah.
number one rated recruit, I think, in his class dating back a couple years ago. Hometown kid, stayed in state. But yeah, he can only do so much. I feel like for
Yeah.
that offense, and he's got he's a weapon. He's a dude, but like I guess just comparing here with even staying strictly in the SEC, we're not anywhere close to like a Brock Bowers Georgia situation as far as weaponry
Yeah.
goes.
And we love to talk about the skill positions, the quarterbacks,
Yeah,
the weapons,
yeah,
all that. But really, when push comes to shove, a huge part of winning football games is having five big dudes on the O line who know what they're doing. Having a defensive line that has maybe six or eight guys that can rotate in and out and make it hell on the quarterback. Having a kicker, a punter. It's every position on the field.
yeah.
And teams like Alabama, they got 4 and 5 stars at every position on the field. Mizzou, not so much.
Nope, nope. Yeah, and that's like you're saying. Yeah, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
The level of talent.
Again, I think
Yeah.
they're a good team. I think they've had a great season already. I think they will continue to. I think they will probably end up in a pretty good bowl game
Yeah.
and maybe pull off a nice win against the Kansas State or something, which
Sure.
would be great for the program.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking. I mean, when you think about where they're projecting and trending and where they end up, I mean, I think they're firmly in that kind of 12 to 20 season end ranking right within that group, and that's a very good season. And especially for expectations with Missouri, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just, yeah, look, Eli Drinkwitz, I think he's a really good coach, and build upon momentum of this season and how it's projecting, and just make the SEC even tougher for all that tougher for years to come now with with our aforementioned the big arrivals of Texas and Oklahoma just around the corner here. But I figure, okay, that's a good amount of time. We've given you some in-depth looks into how we see this national title and CFP race, kind of shaping out, in effect with who we think has a shouting fighter's chance. Now I figure we'll just transition into a segment here called, and if I haven't said already, I'm Colin. So Colin's, Ballins, and Fallins. So just going to be 2 to 3 teams or players or, for each that have either performed really well compared to expectations this season or, fallen below expectations.
Of course.
And so, look, we've pretty much already talked about in some way, shape, or form these, pretty much all 6, so to speak, of mine. But starting out with the good here, with the ballers, with the Ballins, I'm going to start with out west. Look, I'm a little biased, but I got to go with Cam Ward and the Cougs. I think
Cam
they've
Ward's
just
balling.
haven't, he's been absolutely balling. It's so easy to, overlook him in a trio of Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, that kind of have, to be fair, they've had more of a body of work. They've kind of had multiple seasons of really continuing extremely, extremely high level play. But I just got to go with Cam Ward and that really Washington State team is one of my first Ballins, and then transitioning here, I think going back to the SEC. Look, Malik Neighbors for me has been unbelievable, pretty much unguardable for as bad as LSU has struggled in the defensive side of the ball and had their trials and tribulations in that front, giving up 50 points to an Ole Miss team. But I think Malik Neighbors, in my view, he's trending to what we saw or had hoped Keyshawn Booty to really be as that kind of heir, that next in line of the LSU receivers, and I think he's really just shown out. And for me,
Can I play devil's advocate
sure
on that one?
sure.
I wouldn't have my body of evidence be a game that a high school team would have scored 50 points in because neither of those teams played a lick of defense.
Yeah,
I would have
Yeah.
had 10 catches for 180 yards receiving in that game.
Yeah, I guess even if you take away those 220 yards and whatever many touchdowns it is, I mean, it hasn't just been, 1 or 2
No, it
games in
hasn't.
isolation for him.
Yeah.
I just think when I guess my slant here too, for our audience out there, a little bit understanding, I guess where I gravitate towards too. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I mean, we're both big fantasy football guys, NFL and even some college exposure too. I just look at, and obviously I mentioned Dane Brugler before. It's like I'm a big NFL draft guy and, always projecting, who would be within college, who's in these next crops of potential studs on Sundays. And I just think Malik Neighbors is really cementing himself in that number two mix for second receiver in this, in the draft come April. So behind obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. of course, but yeah, I just had to give him some praise there. But I think just kind of wrapping up this segment here. Look, I got to go with going back out west, the Pac-12 quarterbacks. It's really just kind of take your pick, but I'm gonna go specifically with Bo Nix, and the reason with I'm going with Bo Nix is because look, I've had as I've kind of set the stage here some SEC bias, and look, go back maybe 3-4. It's several years ago at this point, but when I saw him play South Carolina and when he was at Auburn, look, he is just night and day difference. Like with Auburn, it was a struggle bus. It was just really, really difficult, rough sailing.
What it was, and Bo Nix burst onto the scene his first game of his freshman year playing against Justin Herbert in Oregon. They won on that crazy Hail Mary, if you recall. And from that game forward, everything at Auburn was he had plays like that where you'd go, oh my God, this guy's an NFL quarterback. And then he had things where you were just scratching your head. How do you even get to play in college? And what I've seen at Oregon is the trend of the great plays becoming a greater percentage of his game and the head scratchers becoming a smaller percentage until this season. We haven't been seeing the head scratchers.
Oh no, he's been pretty much lights out. And I guess I'm just giving him his shine because relative to the other, Pac-12 quarterbacks, the big two I haven't really mentioned, who, I mean, obviously Caleb Williams, generational type guy, enough said, don't have to beat a dead horse there with his talent and his unbelievable skill. And then with Michael Penix, I think the story with him, I mean, obviously a transfer as well. He had some moments with Indiana. With him, it's just been, the injuries. Can you overcome really, nasty, devastating for a lot of guys? It's just been obviously insane, awesome resilience to see from Michael Penix as well. Yeah. It's just Bo Nix relative to maybe who's made in terms of their play on the field, who's had kind of the biggest, maybe rise, so to speak. I just got to give him some shine here.
Of course.
But okay, and then going now into my Fallins. We're going back to the SEC, back to LSU. Just that LSU defense. I mean,
goodness.
It's funny. I mean, you watch, other shows and, taking a lot of sports media on the channels, halftime, whatever of games, whatever it might be, whatever game it is. I mean, you look at, the likes of Booger, ESPN's favorite, past Monday Night Football, and Booger's...
in the Booger Mobile.
Yeah, talk about a legendary little era there, but it's just like it just cracks me up when he doesn't even want to talk about him on air. It's just like unrecognizable. And look, we think about LSU as this, DBU. We think about even, in the trenches or even in, linebackers, the whole second level, anywhere across the LSU defense, we're used to seeing studs out there. And even with Harold Perkins, I believe it is, Harold, he had an unbelievable true freshman year. And he just, it's just mind-boggling to me. We talk about earlier with Mizzou. They're maybe not, speaking of Joe's, they're not the most outside, and obviously Luther Burden being an exception, the home state, home cooking. LSU is the preeminent. They're a top 5 team. If they don't have the best, if it's not Bama, they have the best SEC recruiting class each year, and it's just you expect much more out of them. And obviously they're from their preseason ranking. Excuse me. It's just I don't know what's going on with LSU.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about that defense, and not to pile on them, but they have been really bad. And I think a part of that is you think of LSU over the years, even the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase year, where it was a lot of flash, a lot of pomp and circumstance and all that, still it was hard-nosed SEC football on the defensive end. Their 2 previous national titles, the one under Saban and the one under Les Miles, same thing. Hard-nosed, punch him in the mouth, SEC defense. They go out and they hire Brian Kelly, who's had a lot of success as a football coach, but he hasn't done it that way. He's been, he hasn't been building a wall on defense to win games 10-7. And now I think maybe you're seeing some of the influence of the coaching.
No, great point. And, sticking within the SEC for this, the Fallins, I got to go with, we've talked about him already. I mean, the Alabama quarterback streak and just that quarterback room. I mean, I can I can't relate necessarily as an Alabama fan, but just to going from Jalen Hurts to Mac Jones, Bryce Young, it is a far cry
It
for
is.
this season, and it's just difficult because you just don't associate this level of quarterback play really at all with Bama, or you haven't been for several years. I mean, maybe we go back to like the no disrespect. I guess no. AJ McCarron was a good really good quarterback, but like not we're not. It's like the
But
Jake
no, he was never.
Cokers,
Yeah,
the
even AJ
Cooper
McCarron, he
Batemans.
was never in the Heisman race. He wasn't one of those
Uh huh.
guys. Alabama's had Heisman level guys
Yeah.
for a while now, and
Well,
all
just
of a sudden they don't.
yeah, just guys that at bare minimum, and because I don't want to disrespect AJ, and obviously Brent Musburger did not disrespect him, or did not
Did not disrespect Catherine Webb,
yeah,
his
that's what I meant.
girlfriend at the
That's
time.
yeah. So but even I guess with just this wrapping up with Bama, it's just you expect maybe this level of keeping you in the game at home against Texas in your own turf, to try to get you over the
Yep.
hurdle there, but it's just been I mean, we're struggling. We're changing the quarterback room. What, week 3 against UCF or USF? Excuse me. Not to confuse Central and South here, but just been it's just been unbelievable to see it
It
in a
has been.
bad way. And
Yeah.
just to wrap it up here, kind of set the stage here. Some of my bias. Look, I got to go with Fallin with Clemson. I just think the Dabo era, and I'm trying to. I mean, look, you have your ACC ties,
Yep.
you have your own perspective there, and
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But I just think with the Dabo era with Clemson, it's just similarly with this idea of maybe the quarterback obviously anchoring, and
Hmm.
obviously lost Brett Venables, and maybe
Yeah.
feeling the effects of that. Really, I just think Clemson were not as a team that was a preseason top 10,
Hmm.
and they're not even in the top 3 really of the ACC. I don't think.
Well, to me, it was never shocking that Dabo was the biggest anti-transfer portal and anti NIL guy in the world. And as much as he wants to make it about he doesn't think it's right and it's not the way that it should be done, and this is amateur athletics, read between the lines. The reason he loved the old system was that he got all the best players under the old system. When no
True.
one could pay you to
True.
go play anywhere else, where were you going to go? The place that gave you the best shot of going to the NFL. Clemson was one of those teams. And when you weren't playing and you had to go sit out a year if you were going to transfer somewhere else, you would think, hey, maybe I'll stick it out my sophomore, junior year, stick around at Clemson, and yeah. So now he doesn't have those advantages, and he's not taking advantage of them on the other end. He's not bringing in transfers, and
Nope.
yeah, I mean X's and O's, Jimmys and Joes. We talked about it a bunch, but this is the least Jimmy and Joe Clemson team I can ever remember. And if he doesn't use the transfer portal again, it's only going to get worse.
Oh yeah. Yep. It's just like, and you think, I guess it's almost as if he's been, so dug in, and maybe if is stubbornness going to overrule and stand in his own way with this talking about this transfer portal, and maybe he's already, kind of dug his grave to some degree with his attitude and his words and his, outspokenness. It's just not
Yeah.
an attractive destination relatively within this
Well, you make a
transfer
very good
landscape.
point. It's not that Clemson guys aren't getting NIL deals. It's not that they can't get NIL deals. But when he's out there banging the drum saying, let's get rid of NIL, players shouldn't be getting paid. If you're a high school kid who wants to make good NIL money, why would you ever go play
Yeah,
for that guy?
no, it's
Yeah.
it's yeah, and it's yeah. I mean, it's just like you're saying. It seems like it's just been on the horizon here and on the precipice for just building up and building up to this point. And with a couple early season losses, it is it's totally manifested itself.
Yeah.
But all right, now okay, we've gone into some deep dives here. Figure let's just pass it over. Let's go into actually the slate this
Yeah.
weekend. Talk about your notable games you're looking out for, and just kind of make our picks here. Win loss wise, and then transition into some best bets of the week.
Yep.
So
All right, I say we start right at the top. 12 o'clock game, most important game of the weekend, most exciting game of the weekend, one of the most exciting games of the season every year. Red River Shootout, Oklahoma, Texas. And doesn't it feel so good that they're both 5-0? That this isn't one of those years where we've seen it in the past. Oklahoma's undefeated. Texas is slumping. They've only got 1 or 2 wins, and it doesn't feel like it has all the gravitas that it could.
Hmm.
This year it does. Not only are they both undefeated, as we talked about, they both look like they've got a pretty clear path to the playoff if they can win this game. So this game is everything.
Hmm.
What do you see?
I see the Longhorns all day at home really running the table here in, this Red River rivalry. I think, look, Quinn Ewers, he's another guy, really good. I mean, he's played maybe not up to the Heisman level, maybe as consistently as some of these other guys out west, maybe in the Big Ten. But
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're too talented at home, and they have. I'm not going to jinx. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. But I gotta go with the Texas at home.
Yeah. I already talked about it when we were doing our lists. I don't think Oklahoma's for real. I don't think they're bad. I
No,
just don't think they're nearly as good as the stats would point out or as their record would suggest.
sure.
I think Texas is as good as we think they are. They stumbled a little bit getting over an emotional Alabama win. I'm not too worried about that. They're still undefeated. They're still, as I said, in a position to take this conference, by the horns for
Hmm.
no pun intended.
Yeah.
And and yeah, I think it's horns up this week.
Oh yeah.
I like Texas. I like Texas big. I know we're not talking gambling yet, but when we do, I'm hammering Texas.
Okay, that I think makes two of us.
All right, next game. This one is kind of a sneaky big game, I think. You look at the slate, this one might not jump out at you, but it's another undefeated matchup.
Hmm.
You got Ohio State playing Maryland, who, like I said, they're undefeated. And not only are they undefeated, they're looking like they're firing on all cylinders right now. They think that, I don't know what we're going to say, but they think they can win this game and they think they can compete for a Big Ten title this year.
Yeah, but I don't think so. Not to burst the balloon. Again, I feel like maybe Maryland, to me, they kind of are in the same similar boat as maybe Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really good season so far. And look, Ataga Vailoa
Yeah.
is a great family quarterback lineage to have, and I think Maryland is they're a tough, well coached team,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I mean look, I've kind of iterated already. I think Kyle McCord is a good kind of underrated by many in my
Mm-hmm.
view. I think Ohio State really kind of fires on not maybe all cylinders or every
Mm-hmm.
cylinder, but I think Ohio State really puts up some points and takes care of business in this one.
Okay. I think it is worth noting that Maryland is going to have the best quarterback on the field in this game. I know you're a big Cal McCord guy. I know
And
that
so, yeah.
he beat, well, we say he beat Notre Dame. Ohio State beat Notre Dame, and everyone wanted to throw Kyle McCord into the Heisman race. I don't think he's bad. Obviously, he's good enough to win the starting job at Ohio State and has been good enough to be a steady hand once he won that job. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's a Heisman candidate. I don't think he's the next CJ Stroud, Justin Field, these guys we've seen come through Ohio State. And and I think Talia is a really good quarterback. He's having a great season. He obviously started at Alabama with his brother, transferred to Maryland.
Hmm.
Been a little bit up and down at Maryland, but so far this year, it's all been up, and it's all pointing up. I don't think Maryland wins this game. I do think Maryland is able to score on this defense, though. So
Okay. Okay.
I like it to be closer than people think. I maybe even have Ohio State fans really sweating in the fourth quarter. I do think Ohio State wins the game, though.
Okay. Okay. So a little bit same result, but a little bit different, maybe manner of victories, how it happens. But all right. I'm seeing we have going down south. Speaking of Missouri, we got Missouri LSU.
Yep.
What? Who do you think? Let's start with UConn. Who do you think?
I think your national champion Tigers are in for a dogfight.
Oh
I
yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a weird contrasting style here. I think Mizzou still wants to keep it on the ground a bit, play a little old school SEC football, And as we saw last week, that's not even in LSU's playbook, really. LSU wants to air it out. They want to let the other team air it out for some reason. It looked like they were trying to let Ole Miss score points last week. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a contrasting style thing. And this is the case study for X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's, because I think Mizzou has been playing better football. They've been playing smarter football, safer football, but LSU has more guys who are going to be playing on Sunday one day.
Sure. And I think just to clarify here, we're talking Mizzou at home is the number 21 ranked team in the country versus 23. So yeah, Mizzou, and what do we think? What do we have line wise? Mizzou at home
The
in
line on that one,
Columbia,
it's a 4 point line. LSU 4 point favorites on the road.
4 point favorites on the road. Okay, so that's interesting. I think LSU does win this, but I almost think it's a field goal or less type game. I think it's really going to come down to a last possession of the game, and I think we're going to see into the high 30s, 40s in terms of a shootout, so to speak. Maybe it even is a sneaky call for a triple, quadruple overtime. We're talking 2 point conversions type of game, but I think LSU pulls this one out for what would be, I think, easily their best win
Yeah.
to date.
Oh,
So,
certainly.
and I think gets them back into striking distance in that top 15-ish range, I think. So,
Yeah. I realized I didn't make a play on the game. I just kind of talked about it. I if I were if I were gambling it, I'd bet Missouri. I don't want to do that. I don't want to bet either team. I like this to be under a touchdown either way, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
think a 4 point line leaves that open to going either way.
yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I like this to be a tight, tough contested game. All right, we got your Cougs, your favorite team in the country,
Yep.
going up against UCLA, a team that you're also very high on this year. I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, look, big talking about, speaking of the NFL draft, big draft guy. I mean, they have UCLA's got an absolute game wrecker, on that defensive line, and Latu.
Yes.
And I mean, he's really, I think, risen up to the point where, speaking of another, very good team, Florida State's Jared Verse, who talk about an U of Albany, New York transfer, and he was projecting to be a top 20 comfortably pick in the NFL draft had he declared last year, but now all of a sudden what had seemed like a lock for Jared Verse to kind of dominate that edge, defensive, edge conversation, so to speak. Latu, really good player. And then even Dante Moore, we're talking a phenomenal young quarterback who,
Freshman.
yep, true freshman. Chip Kelly, I think, give him obviously a couple more years. I think he's going to be a number one.
Although I
type.
will say, I cannot tell you how many conversations like this I had. Give Chip Kelly a couple more years with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And while he was a great player and he's in the NFL now, it was always, we're going to be hearing about him in the Heisman and them in the national championship game once Chip Kelly just gets his hands on this guy.
Yeah,
it didn't quite work out there. So
No, and that's fair. That's fair. And yeah, just ending this at UCLA conversation. It's going to be Wazoo. I'm going with the Wazoo, which I believe they are 4 point,
3 point.
3 point. Okay, 3 point. Look, it doesn't. That's semantics to me. I'm going Wazoo money line. If to bet here, we'll see if that's maybe one of my best bets of the week.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because there are so many pitfalls in the Pac-12 schedule this year. So usually UCLA would never be like a look-ahead game or a letdown spot for Wazoo. But you got to think that they're starting to think, we got all of these games. Is UCLA one that they kind of overlook? I don't know. That's the only real rationale I could have on that line because I don't see how UCLA is the better team. I just don't. I've watched them both play a bunch. And, I mean, hell, UCLA really struggled with Coastal, who I was high on going into that game, going into the season. I've watched them play 3 more games now, and I go, oh, Coastal's just not that good this year, and UCLA really struggled with them. Wazoo hasn't been struggling. They've been kind of beaten up on teams. I got Wazoo money line as well.
Nice, yeah, and I've even seen. I mean, given not to, put UCLA too far down, but I mean, even I know what stuck in my mind the other week. when they were at Utah, which, I mean, tough place to play.
Very
Altitude,
tough.
really
Yeah.
difficult. And young quarterback. I mean, a lot working against you in that game for
Hmm.
UCLA, but just couldn't move the ball. Just
Yeah.
could not move the ball. And obviously at home now, a totally different story. But the
It's not like they have a
opponents,
great home field advantage,
no,
though.
nope. And the opponent, for our money, the opponent's only getting better from compared to Utah, with these Cougs. So,
Yep.
yep. Moving to the ACC, we have Va Tech versus the Seminoles. Do you have any potential upset alert watch
Hokey,
here?
hokey, hokey, high, tech, tech, VPI. I wish I was singing that out of, as I was about to unveil quite a take. No, I don't even think this game's worth talking about. Florida State in a rout.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as well here.
Uh,
Going to a very notable game of the week here in College Station. We've got A&M, who your Hurricane just took easy work, made easy work of, against the Crimson Tide here, and Jalen Milroe at the helm. How do you see this one playing out? I've been going back and forth, to be honest, on this one.
all right. I like A&M here. I like A&M money line. I don't even know. It's a 1 point spread, so that's not a
Yeah,
crazy call.
which it
But
would be an upset, I think, for A&M to win at
yes,
home, but
technically.
technically, storm the fields.
But no, I mean, like A&M, their defense has actually looked really good every week except one. It was against Miami. Obviously, it's the best offense they've played, but they looked they didn't look bad on defense in terms of stopping the run, in terms of getting a push up front. Where they looked really bad was they got carved up in the secondary. Jalen Milroe is not the kind of quarterback who's going to carve up a secondary. He just isn't. They're going to try to run the ball. They're going to try designed runs with him. They're handoff screens. It's going to be all kind of in the lap of the strength of that A&M defense. And on offense, A&M's looked pretty good. I mean, even in the Miami game, they got beat by a lot. They still scored a lot of points. Now, it's worth mentioning they got a backup quarterback in right now, but it's Max Johnson, who was a starter at
Sure.
LSU just a couple years ago. I know it didn't turn out great, but I mean, he's a high caliber player.
Experienced.
Yes,
Yep.
starter at LSU, and he looked good last week, and he looked good 2 weeks ago when he had to come in halfway through the game. He actually was the better quarterback of the two when he had to come in relief of. My mind is blanking.
Wegman.
Yes, Connor Wegman.
Yep.
So I don't think that's a big step back from Wegman to Johnson. I think Wegman has the higher potential long term. So if you're an A&M fan, you'd love for him to be out there gaining experience. But in this particular game, I'm still taking A&M.
I, I've just been, yeah, like I said, I've wrestled with this back and forth. It's a bit of a gross pick for me. I just have a feeling Bama kind of pulls out maybe as high as a double digit 10-point type win here at A&M. For me, it's just got the makings of like, a Saban statement game. I think he's going to, I mean, look, there's not going to be a better motivator or a better guy to, I feel like, know the pulse, take the pulse, manage the pulse of his team in the build up to this really big game. I think in some way it's a blessing in for this game about with respect to how they've maybe struggled a little bit. How it's people are you could use that underdog mentality type to
Mm-hmm.
really get the guys going. And look, I'm not the biggest like we've touched on with the their quarterback debacle and the decrease in play that and the standard, if you will, that we've
Mm-hmm.
seen. I'm not the biggest Milrow guy, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that he rises to the occasion and leads this team to a I guess not an upset, but leads this Alabama team to victory in College Station. And I think I guess I would obviously. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em. 1 point
Mm-hmm.
is 1 point, so not. I don't feel great about the pick though. I don't feel great. I'll just caveat it by that, a little weak, but we're transitioning down here. We got some ACC contest here with Syracuse, the Orange taking on UNC at UNC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Syracuse is a team I've been high on this year. they typically give Clemson some trouble. They've actually beaten them in the Dabo dominance era. So I was expecting a big game out of Syracuse last week when Clemson came to town.
Sure. Yep. Same here.
And they looked bad. They didn't look like they couldn't move the ball. The one drive where they really looked like they were moving it with ease, they were throwing it down the field and doing well. And for whatever reason, Dino Babers decided, all right, let's run it three straight times right into the line, and that drive with a field goal instead of 6. And yeah, I mean, it was just they didn't fill me with a lot of confidence last week. I think UNC's the better team. Syracuse has a couple good wins this year. I really like Garrett Schrader at quarterback. He's probably the best we've seen in an orange uniform since Ryan Nassib or something. So yeah, I think Syracuse is a good team. I think this is a good season for the program. They're going to keep trending the right direction. I don't think they win this game, and I don't know that it's particularly close.
Took the words out of my mouth pretty much. I think, look, assuming we'll see maybe how big a role he plays, but pretty emotional. I think an emotional kind of bump game for UNC with Tez Walker. The story, all the emotions flowing through there. Even if he doesn't, even if he only has 2 catches for 28 yards, I just think UNC is going to roll here. Simple as that.
As I mentioned, the App State game, you don't have another trap game or another look-ahead spot on the schedule when you get scared that bad that early, right? They're going to come into every game knowing that they could lose and they need to bring their A game to win. And if they bring their A game against Syracuse, they're the better team.
Oh, yeah. For sure here.
All right. How about we go over to the SEC?
Okay.
2 teams we mentioned earlier. Kentucky, number 20 in the country, undefeated, coming off a big win against Florida. As we said, we don't know how big that win actually is, but an emotional victory, certainly.
For sure.
Against number 1 in the country, Georgia, who we have said doesn't look like number 1 in the country.
Nope. And hey, potential upset alert here for Georgia, I think, for sure. I mean, especially talk about Kentucky. I mean, yeah, they're not maybe the strongest undefeated team, maybe a little bit of a, glass house there. But I think, look, we just saw Ray Davis put on a show, an absolute show. And I think that's not really the recipe for success to beat Georgia, because their defensive line and their they're obviously defense as a whole. It's just unbelievable talent there. And I saw my Gamecocks, we could not run 1 iota. Like, I don't know, like, couldn't even get. I mean, it's just, I guess, Babers out there.
Everything that you guys did, and you did, keep it close at the half. People were on upset watch all of a sudden at halftime. But everything you did was Spencer Rattler driven.
Yeah.
Right? It was either through the air or him getting out of the pocket and scrambling, because you couldn't run the ball with a running back at all.
Nope.
And I think Kentucky's going to run into the same problem. The problem is Devin Leary is a guy who we were all high on last year. We all thought was going to be great. When he transferred, it was, they're not taking a step back from Will Levis. They got another guy right now, and he hasn't looked like that guy.
No. And I wasn't even necessarily the biggest Devin Leary guy anyway. I think he had really some hype, potential, speaking of NFL drafts, some maybe draft hype heading into last season with NC State. But yeah, I just don't look. And like you said, with South Carolina, we only had a chance really because of Rattler. And it was really interesting, obviously, last week, how Auburn almost pulled it out, or was in it for a while, a good chunk of the game. But I just don't think Kentucky has the stones to go in there in enemy territory and make it really all that close.
That's fighting words. I just said they weren't a good enough team. You said they don't have the stones.
That's just my brain works in mysterious ways here. It kind of just got blurted out there. I think Ray Davis is a dog. I love Ray Davis. Not as much as Devin Leary. I like Mark Stoops. I like Mark Stoops. I just don't think they have, and it's funny because we talk about maybe a theme of the show is how Georgia maybe isn't as strong as they have looked in the past, but I feel like, and let me make it clear. I think Kentucky is in a really unlucky position as far as the schedule and how it's panned out, because I think Georgia And
Yeah,
Kirby Smart is just ready to just explode.
didn't even mention that earlier, had it written down, but Kentucky has 5 more ranked teams on their schedule this year. There's no way Kentucky's running the table here. This is the first of. This is
Hmm.
where it starts to turn bad, and if they
Yeah.
go from 5-0 to 6-6, don't be shocked.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, hey, just feel free. Would love to see an upset. We don't think it's likely, but any Kentucky players, any staff, anywhere close with the team, use me as motivation.
Yeah.
Use it as a rallying cry to get you guys up for the game. But yeah, jokes aside, yeah, like you were saying, we're transitioning into the Big Ten.
Yep, right into the Big Ten. We got Michigan, Minnesota, and as much as I'd like to say that this is one of those games that forget about it, I'm not even going to watch it, there's better games on. This is a little intriguing just because Michigan still hasn't really played anyone. I like Rutgers more than other people, I think. So
Sure.
I I do think that was a bit of a test at Rutgers,
Hmm.
but this is just it's another real Big Ten team. Michigan Minnesota's not great this year, but they are a team full of Big Ten players. They're coming to play. They're coming to give Michigan their best shot in what's a quasi rivalry game up there. And so I think it will be interesting to see how Michigan responds and how they come out of the gate because they've had a couple slow starts. They've always responded. I want to see Michigan's first couple drives against Minnesota. That being said, Michigan wins this one big. This is not going to be a close game.
Yeah, I look. I keep mentioning NFL draft kind of angles here, but JJ McCarthy, I think, is playing himself into first legitimate first round draft conversation here, and obviously, driving force is he is a dual threat, consistent, accurate quarterback this year, and I think he's really special. And Michigan is a complete team. They got guys like Roman Wilson. Speaking of senior, potential big Senior Bowl guys, but yeah, I think and I really don't like Michigan. I'll just preface that, but I gotta call a spade a spade. I think they are a title favorite this year. I think this year they've been as strong as ever,
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly. Um, you know, Ultimately because of the strength of the quarterback play that they've
Yeah,
had. And I think I tend to agree with you. We're talking in Minnesota here, or I guess in Minneapolis. What are we talking about line
that's an
wise?
18.5 point line.
Okay, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, we might be looking at, yeah, just straight 3 touchdowns, so 20
Yeah.
plus, quite honestly. But no, yeah, Michigan, I'm not so amped about that line, just as big as it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm curious. I mean, do you? We'll get into our best bets. We'll get into our best bets. We'll save
Well,
it
I'll just
for.
say because that's not one of my best bets, so it won't come up then. I'll just say it now. Yeah, I'm on Michigan here. I think they do show up and say that hey, we're for real and we're not taking anybody, as a joke, and they probably put it on Minnesota. That being said, the reason the game is interesting to me is to see if they do that or if they come out a little slow, get punched in the mouth, and then have to respond again. Uh, my bet, though, would be on Michigan showing up from the get go, but we'll see.
Fair.
All right. Now we're over to kinda an ACC matchup, an ACC matchup in every sport other than football.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Louisville. Notre Dame number 10, Louisville number 25, but Louisville's the team that's undefeated here, and Louisville's the team that I don't know if you've seen this groundswell of support they have. Their fan base on Twitter and stuff are saying, how in the hell are we 25 in the country? We're undefeated. We're going to stay undefeated. We're going to be there at the end of the year.
Well, I'll tell you, you're not going to be ranked after this week. I like Notre Dame here. I think. Look, I think you alluded to it earlier. Notre Dame, and I did include in the teams I see realistically having a chance still to sneak in there,
Mm-hmm.
into the playoff, and then realistically maybe fighters chance to make some noise, get all the way there. But I think Notre Dame for me, and I'm just feeling maybe it's because maybe you can tell I'm a little bit Irish, but maybe heritage statement game here. I I just think Sam Hartman and Notre Dame are ready to kind of really. I don't think it's going to be a distraction having just been in obviously that kind of dogfight away at Duke. I think Sam Hartman and that offense actually does roll relative to what we've been seeing thus far. And yeah, I just really like Notre Dame here. I mean, listen, we're in Louisville, so we're talking
It's a 6.5.
six and a half. Yeah, I'll just say I like that. I like 6.5. I like that line. So
I love on this game the under.
okay.
I like Louisville's defense a bit. As I talked about, Notre Dame has all of the tools to be this high-powered, high-octane scoring offense, and they just haven't been yet against anybody decent anyway. And I'm not very high on Louisville's offense, so I think Notre Dame wins this like 17-10, and we go way under.
Yeah, I think with Louisville, they've had a really big, explosion here. We're looking at, Jamari Thrash has been incredible for them, but I think Notre Dame has the outside guys to, really kind of mitigate his threat that he's been so consistently this year. Hence why I like, Notre Dame really, take away Louisville's weapons. And I think, Sam Hartman's, I believe in him and his experience to, to will his team to victory here in a relatively maybe commanding fashion. We'll see in a second. So wrapping up, not too many. We're in the business half of the the games here, getting into the night slate, so to speak. We have another SEC tilt: Arkansas at Ole Miss. How are you feeling there?
This is the Sam Pittman fired game. If he's not fired after this game, this will be the game where everyone in Arkansas starts calling for it and the pressure becomes immense. He had one really good year in, I believe it was the COVID year, which almost doesn't count. And ever since then, Arkansas fans have thought, hey, we got this steal of a head coach. We got this great guy. We found him out of nowhere. And it hasn't been that since. It hasn't been close to that since. They don't win big games. They don't beat teams like Ole Miss. They're going to get stomped again this week. And that seat is going to get really hot.
That's fair enough. And look, Sam Pittman, he's a really likable coach. I
don't hate the guy.
Okay, we're just wanted to clarify.
Just being factual.
Wanted to clear the air there. No vendettas out for Sam Pittman down there in Fayetteville, but I think giving them the benefit of the doubt. Rocket Sanders is such a playmaker, and they've been really without him now since week 1, effectively, and obviously feeling the effects. Just a very like you're saying, the seat is warming and warming and warming, and it's just gonna be too. It might be just too hot. Come the end of 24 hours from now even. And we're looking in Oxford. We're looking at 11.5. Over 62.5. Ole Miss, they just put up the points last week. Lane Kiffin, love him or hate him. He knows how to get an offense going, I think, and it's not like he's playing a defense with Drew Sanders or even the Jalen Catalon, who transferred to Texas now and is making an impact there. But it's tough because Arkansas is a likable team, but I just don't see it.
Yeah. I maybe came out a little hot on that one.
I hate
Arkansas. I don't. I'm just being honest. This is what this team has been.
Yeah, and call it like you see it.
Yeah, and maybe there's a little bit of I did think it was funny that all of the Sam Pittman love pouring out like, oh my God, we got the next Saban, and you didn't get the next Saban, and now you guys don't even want him anymore. It's only been 2 years, so
yeah, it just shows how quick things can change in this sphere. But all right, going to Connor's home turf, metaphorically here, we're going Georgia Tech, who actually has, I think, had a decent surprise.
Nice little bounce back from the dumpster fire that Jeff Collins left them in.
Yeah, for sure, totally. So we're in Miami. We're in Coral Gables here, or Hard Rock Stadium, in a sense, technically. Miami 20-point favorites here. How do you feel about this game, Con? Where's your confidence level at as a fan?
The only thing that scares me about this game is how confident I am.
Okay.
I mean, I just haven't seen any cracks in this Miami team yet. I really haven't. And Georgia Tech's not the type of, obviously, you go and you play a Georgia or a Michigan or something,
Hmm.
even if you don't have any cracks and you're playing close to perfect, you can still lose that game. Georgia Tech's not a team that can beat us like that. It really what it would take would be a massive series of blunders, not just one, but a three interception game or something with Georgia Tech being Johnny on the spot and scoring 7 points on all of those interceptions. And I just don't see anything like that. So I like Miami. I like Miami big. Mario Cristobal hasn't really turned off the Jets when he's been up big this year. So yeah, it's 20. I'd bet the Canes on that. I think even if they're up by 21 late, they're not pulling. Now they have actually pulled Tyler Van Dyke in the big, but
Okay.
they're not
Good
pulling most of
context.
the offense.
Sure.
And the backup is a true freshman who's playing really well. So
Okay.
yeah,
So potential, you know, bad beat proof. You're saying with that, if that offense, yeah,
yeah.
pushing that, yeah, not a huge, yeah, not like nobody's out there when it comes down to maybe the last 4 or 5 minutes, like you're saying. Okay,
Hmm.
good to know for that. I got to agree. For the most part here, Miami. Yeah, speaking of Van Dyke, I mean he has had a renaissance. Really, I mean it's just look what how wonders can happen when you don't have a certain offensive coordinator, I guess, as we should say. But going into just wrapping up I guess, kind of the top 25 slate here, we
Sure.
have Fresno State, Wyoming. Look, I'm not going to pretend like I know all that much about either team,
Hmm.
quite frankly. I think, look, at Wyoming, Josh Allen. I just got to go Wyoming for that.
Josh Allen's not walking through that door.
No, he
But
might not.
Wyoming wins this game anyway. That's my bold take. I think Wyoming's a much better team than people kind of realize, because who's watching Wyoming?
Yeah.
Also, Fresno State. It's awesome. It's been an awesome little run. Jake Hainer to now this team. They're undefeated. They're ranked in the top 25. That's really cool for them. They're also
Hmm.
ranked in the top 25 with two very close games that could be losses. This is a 5-0 team that's not far away from being 3-2 this year. I think Wyoming, probably being one of the better group of five teams in the country,
Yeah.
is looking at them saying, why are they getting all the shine? Where's our shine?
Sure.
This is their time to go out and take some shine. I like Wyoming at home. That's actually a tough place to play. They do get, when they have a decent team, they get some pretty big crowds and some pretty loud crowds. So yeah, that's what I got there. I got Wyoming in that game.
Sounds good. Going back out, or staying, I guess, out west here.
Hmm.
Oregon State against Cal. I guess just to lead off here, I think Oregon State, I think they're too much of a well coached, well oiled machine here. I think Cal has almost had this kind of tough stigma to shake about how they're
Hmm.
just nowhere near, a good football school. And look, I think it's somewhat, it's grounded ultimately in some facts.
Hmm.
I do love Jade Knott. I think he's a really good player, but, you know, I just don't think Cal has enough really, to make it a ball game.
This is one of my confusing lines of the week.
Okay.
I just do not see how this is a 9 point game. I do not see the world in which Cal keeps this as a single digit game. Can you explain to me the path to that even happening? Because if I'm looking at this game, I'm expecting it to be, I mean, a pretty big blowout. Maybe not a 40-point rout, but maybe a 27-10 game or something.
Yeah, I mean that's no, that's a great point. And I mean just thinking about, yeah, Cal. I mean they have Jaden Knott, and I mean it's Oregon State. Even if it isn't a super high scoring game,
Hmm.
Oregon State's got guys on both sides of the ball, and
Yeah.
Damian Martinez is a dog. I mean
He's
he's
maybe the best running back in the country.
yeah, and I think this kind of has to me this has like the makings of a kind of sustained, like, no, almost like no punts for Oregon State, like just kind of working the ball down the field
Yep.
with relative ease, I feel like. And yeah, the only thing I guess how I could maybe to play devil's advocate for this line, how it's a little bit confusing, the 9 points. You figure, all right, maybe Oregon State gets the ball first. They go on these, like they work these drives down the field from their 75, 80 plus yard drives of 7.5, 8 minutes, and then before you know it, it's halftime and it's only like 14
Mm-hmm.
nothing. But and then you know Cal gets an opening. Cal gets like a touchdown, a fluke field goal, whatever, fluke return, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just the more you go through it, the more it's just odd. Why is this line not even double digits? So
Yep.
we'll see. Maybe tune in, stay tuned for what we, our best bets, and if it is part of it. But wrapping it up with the 10:30 Eastern game here out west, we got Caleb Williams hosting the Arizona Wildcats. Con, I know you have some skin in the game with Arizona this year.
I do. I've got a future on their over wins. It's gonna be tough because I only need 2 more wins, but they got a tough road to hoe.
Pac-12, man.
Yeah. That being said, I put the future on that game because I think that Jaden Delora is maybe the best underappreciated quarterback in the country this year.
Okay.
And he's been very good. Now they're 3-2. They don't have a very good team, but they hung with Washington last
Yeah.
week. They
Yeah.
really gave Washington all they could handle.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of that comes from great quarterback play. So I'm not expecting Arizona to win. I do think they'll score, especially with how bad USC's defense is. I don't think anybody stops anybody in this game. This is going to be a high scoring game. And I think Arizona can keep it within the 21.5 point line. I'm betting Arizona on the spread here, not the money line.
Okay.
Let's be clear.
Okay. Yeah. Clarify that. Clarify that. Clarify.
How about you?
Yeah. Look, I think USC played it, or they allowed the game, I guess, in my view, to be really close, in Boulder against Colorado last week. I don't think that's the case for this week. I think they just don't really play with their lunch as much as they did.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams got really, I guess, kind of audacious with
Yep.
some of his play in that second half of that game last week. I think, yeah. Cal, or not Cal, Southern Cal, I guess we can say. Pretty comfortable win. I just don't like with lines that big, 21.5. I mean, a lot can happen. Maybe it is in Arizona, maybe they do kind of hang in there. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I really
even if it's a 20-point game, it's Arizona cash.
well, the thing is, I really could see Arizona scoring 30 points here. So then to win, you need 52 out of USC. And so it's just, obviously that could happen. USC is liable to put up 52 points, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think those big numbers are tough to get on the right side of if you pick the favorite when the underdog is still scoring.
Okay.
But yeah, those are the big games this week. I had a few others written down. I think for time purposes, we'll probably 86 those or
How many are we talking? How many matchups?
I just had like 4 or 5 other games I thought were worth talking about.
Well, just pick now. What we got? We got time.
How
We'll
about
go through
Colorado, Arizona State? All right, that's a 3.5 point line. Another bit of a confusing line for me. Colorado obviously were the toast of college football through 3 weeks. All everyone was talking about. They go and get their doors blown off by Oregon, but then they respond nicely with a 7 point loss to USC in a game that maybe if timeouts and clock management were a little bit different, might have been going to overtime. And so I actually have been high on Arizona State this year. I like Jaden Rashada, who they started with. I like Drew Pine, who has come into. So I think they've got some good quarterback play there too, as the whole Pac-12 does. I just don't see how they're only 3.5 points worse than Colorado.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. I mean, and I'm a big, Dion Prime guy here with a Colorado over. I placed. Got to be honest, it wasn't preseason. It was after like week 1. We're halfway there for my Buffaloes here. We need 3 more wins, and I'm really banking on this matchup to be one of them because the Pac-12, it is just a gauntlet.
It's a gauntlet.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But I don't know. I think Colorado has too much talent. I mean, I think they're still gonna be without Travis Hunter.
Yep.
Colorado, to me, it's just. You can see the trajectory. You can see, I mean, last week, it's just been they've gotten off to some really tough starts in some of these games. I don't think that's necessarily the case against Arizona State. I like Colorado here. The line's almost confusing me. I just don't want to, I like Colorado here. They're not like a best bet, I guess, in my book. But I think Colorado, easily.
Although, as you said, I think it's worth talking about. is this a rat line? Is this a trap line? The line really doesn't make any sense to
Yeah,
me.
I just don't. I'm just
What
distancing
did they know
myself.
that I don't? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, true. What is cooking down there? And
Yeah. But all right, another big game that's neither team are ranked, so they're not in the ranked games of the week. UCF Kansas. It's it would almost be irresponsible to even project this game right now because we don't know really if either quarterback is going to be playing. I think Jalen Daniels will be fine, but he was supposed to be fine last week. His back seized up. He didn't play in the game. John Maurice Plumlee, maybe back, maybe not. That's more of a 50-50 call, I believe. But two very good quarterbacks on two very good unranked teams. We just don't know what we're going to see yet. That's a game we'll know more Saturday morning.
yeah, I don't really feel all that comfortable making a call either way. I guess if I had to go pure gut instinct here, maybe we'll track these gut calls, kind of gut calls each show. But pure gut. I think I like the Jayhawks here, but it's
Pure gut, I think I
yeah.
like UCF. So
Okay,
I guess
we'll
it's a little
try
bit
this
of a
head to
gut
head.
off.
Yeah, the gut off. But the weekly gut off. This is the
Yeah.
weekly gut off game. So,
Yeah.
all right, what else?
I had
Wrapping
Wake
up.
Clemson. It's not even worth talking about. It's a 21.5 point line. I just thought it was interesting that we're seeing Clemson
Such a
unranked, and yeah, it's but no, that's should be Clemson easy. Wake's not very good this year. They're not as good as their record. So
yeah, for sure, for
uh,
sure.
I had one a little bit further off the reservation. UTSA Temple. I just wanted to mention because that's another line that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. UTSA is a 14-point favorite in that game. I know Frank Harris is great. The team has been very bad. Not only have they been losing, they've been losing in blowouts every week. I know Temple's no good
Yeah,
either,
yeah.
but I don't think UTSA should be a 14-point favorite against any team playing FBS football.
And we're talking UTSA's got to go from Texas to Philly, right? I
I do not have that written down where this one is.
I believe I'm pretty sure that's the case. So
Okay.
that when you said 14, I honestly, because I had seen the line somewhere in the last couple days or so, but to me I thought it was I thought it wasn't even like 10. 14,
14's
a full two piece. I mean, that's kind of
It didn't
that's
make a lot of
pretty
sense
no,
to me.
yeah,
That's why I brought it up.
that's a lot. No, that is a good point. That's a lot. I just assuming it, yeah, pretty sure it is at Temple. So in that scenario, I just don't. That's uh, I just don't see how. I mean, you look UTSA. Yeah, Frank Harris. I mean, you really talk about, I guess, a disappointment. Yeah, UTSA team as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, to play devil's advocate. I know because for the sake of fantasy purposes, I've been um, monitoring like their with DeCorian Clark, Josh
Yep.
Cephas. I mean, they've struggled with health, I guess, in terms of that receiver room for a little bit.
They've been all banged
But
up. Frank Harris has been banged up too.
yeah,
But
so I guess that's
but
explains
still,
things.
like
Kind
I
of.
said, it's not like they've, I think they're 1-3, 1-4, whatever they are. It's
Yeah.
not like they're losing games. They're getting blown out.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so it's like it is. It's assuming, yeah, in isolation, it is assuming quite a lot to think they're just gonna
Yeah.
click on all cylinders. In this context, in this game. So yeah, I don't feel again that's a very. I mean, good calls with these games here. It's just weird matchups, weird
Yep.
lines. Not really in our best, I don't think, in terms
No.
of our locks here. But
And then I just had one more I want to bring up before
okay,
we get to our best
sure.
bets. Wisconsin Rutgers. I just think that this game is going to be good to watch. It's going to tell us a lot about the state of the Big Ten. I think these are two good Big Ten
Sure.
teams, and they both only have one loss. That's another line I think's a little big. It's 13, but I think it will tell us kind of a lot about where Wisconsin is, but also maybe tell us a little bit about where Michigan is. I've been touting that Michigan over Rutgers game as a pretty good win, thinking that Rutgers is, on the right track. Not that they're going to contend this year, but that they're a pretty good team. If they go out and get their doors blown off by Wisconsin, maybe I think that Michigan really hasn't played anyone, and so I'm excited for that game. That's kind of my unranked but excited to watch game of the week.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm envisioning classic Big Ten rough football here. Maybe that's an underplay. Well, I'd have to look what the exact over under is, but
Yeah. And that's a good point because everyone thought, oh, Phil Longo's bringing the spread offense to Wisconsin. They're not going to look like themselves. They're going to be throwing it all over the place. And through 5 weeks, now they're trying to rumble and bumble and stumble their way to touchdowns.
Yeah. Ches Malusi, Braylon Allen, man, that 2-horse, backfield there. But
Although Malusi is no longer healthy.
okay, good point. Good point.
But still.
He early stage of the season, I was seeing almost split carries, but good point there. Good, just minor point.
Yep.
Big detail, but
All right, do you have a best bet for me?
yes, I have a couple.
Okay,
best
give me
bets
your
for you.
couple. I like it.
I've got, so I'm rocking with 3 here.
Okay.
So first match on the schedule, I'm going the Longhorns. I'm not saying it. I am not saying it, but I'm going with the Longhorns here. I'm going, they take care, they cover easily in my book. We've talked about Oklahoma and how we maybe don't think they're, really this not this true superpower, top 10 bordering type team. It was what they really are.
Yep.
I believe in Texas. I think they're going to really run the table here, get it done. Texas has shown too, the guts to go in and win at Bama. I think they take care of business here, plain and simple.
Love it.
And then number 2 here, it's just, they're basically at this point, they're my second team, honestly. I'm going with Cam Ward and the Cougs to go into UCLA and money line. It's what? We're talking field goal-ish type line here to start. I just think Washington State is going to be too much for UCLA to handle, and I think Washington State's got the guys to make it happen. I love that play this week, Washington State money line, and then to round it out, we're going to Kentucky. We're going with the Fighting Irish, legacy game for the Irish here, both in, I guess, no, it's South, what am I saying? South Bend. I think I said Big Bend before. I might have been confusing that London. I'm a big London guy here.
Yes,
but
the tower, Big Bend.
Yeah, that's probably what I meant. Yeah, but no, I'm going Notre Dame with actually a statement game here. Them to cover that 6.5 in Louisville. So those are my 3 bets. Locks of the week. Call it whatever. Con, what do you got? What do you got for your bet or bets?
I feel bad. I'm going back to 2 of the same games as you. But
Okay.
Give me Texas. Hammer Texas. It's I'm all in on Texas. I will
Like it.
be
Love it.
very surprised if we're talking about me losing that bet on Monday.
Okay.
Going right back with you to Notre Dame Louisville too. As I said, I love the under in this. I just don't think either team score a bunch of points. 54 feels like a lot for what Notre Dame's offense has been able to do and what they've given up, no matter who the opponent is. And then you bring in Louisville, who's bringing a pretty good defense to the table too. I love the under there. And then I have one a little bit further off the radar. Miami, Ohio is the best group of 5 team no one's talking about because they lost week 1. And when you lose week 1 as a group of 5 team, you get thrown out because you have to be undefeated as a group of 5 team for anyone to talk about you.
Yeah.
They got thrown in the garbage. They shouldn't have. They are a good team. Bowling Green, on the other hand, not a very good team. I got Miami, Ohio minus 9.5 against Bowling Green.
I like that a little bit. I like it. I know they have, speaking of fantasy, I know they got this guy, Gage Larvadane, a receiver who's had some pretty dominant moments this season. And they also have Blaine Gabbert's younger brother at quarterback.
They do.
Who talks some, rah-rah.
A little mess. It didn't go his way.
First game of the season, but we like to think he's learned and grown from it. He's matured here.
I will say, no one saw the whole clip of that. As much as I would have liked to crush him over it, he got set up by the reporter. The reporter asked the question. They said, which Miami is the real Miami? What's he going to say? Not us?
Yeah. No, that's so true.
Yeah, that was dirty business. You don't want to reporter.
Yeah, what do they want to clip this guy and then show it to his teammates about, oh, yeah, I don't believe in us at all. Oh, we're just going there. We're just happy to be there. Nah, that's, good call. I like that. I like that pick. So there you have it for our best bets of the week. I guess you have to just double down on Texas. Take it, that we're both in on this. Yeah.
Fade us heavily.
At your own peril.
Yeah.
And demise, I should say. But, all right, that will do for week 1/week 6 of the first installment of the CNC on CFB show here.
Yep.
Brought to you live by Connor and Colin over here. Thank you guys for watching. Connor, any last words to say or any as we head into this weekend?
Yeah, I just want to say great slate of games ahead. Can't wait to watch them all.
Oh,
We
yeah.
will be back on Monday, probably with a shorter episode to
A
break
little
things
bit, yeah.
down.
A little
No,
bit.
this was a little long.
Reaction, yep.
But all I got is I'm Coach Prime. This is the Aflac Duck, and that's the first episode.